Imagine the end of the greatest conqueror the world has ever seen. Picture not a triumphant hero, but a young man barely in his 30s lying paralyzed, sweating with fever, circling the line between life and eternity. This is not the vision carved onto trembling scrolls hundreds of years later. It is the final, fragile reality of Alexander, the night that shook history itself. It's early June. Babylon, swollen and gleaming with loot and legends, whispers of omens everywhere. Alexander has just returned from conquering distant India. He's undefeated in battle, worshipped as a living god by some, as a monster by others. His body, built for war, suddenly rebels against him. The strongest man anyone had known is struck down, legs heavy, voice fading. Those closest to him, generals, companions, lovers, circle the bed, eyes wide not just with sadness, but terror. Almost everyone in that chamber knows the empire is far more fragile than it seems. With Alexander's body now failing, a question burns brighter than the torches on the palace wall. What will happen to his name, his power, his very flesh, when he's gone? His soldiers, veterans of 1,000 miles, refuse to accept it. They stand at the palace gates demanding to see their king, desperate to believe, like all humans who watch a hero slip away, that death can be bargained with. Alexander is too weak to speak. The story goes that he simply lifts his hand. One by one, the people who shaped history by his side file past his bed. Ptolemy, his trusted general; Roxana, his wife; Perdiccas, tasked with holding the empire together. Each tries to read his last will. Each sees something different written on his face. Some imagine glory, others the beginning of a nightmare. The world outside the palace holds its breath. It's at this moment, when the man is becoming a myth, that the first seeds of the tomb's legend are planted. Because Alexander's death was not just the end of a life, it was the detonation of a power vacuum so massive it shredded the most powerful empire the world had seen. And in the desperate scramble for scraps of his legacy, the question of what would happen to his body became the most valuable prize of all. There are stories. Was he poisoned? Did the gods kill him? Was he murdered by his own men, fearing his plans for even greater conquests? The debate never ends, because with empires at stake, truth was already the first casualty. The only certainty is this: his body became more than a corpse, it became a symbol. Whoever controlled the carcass of the unkillable Alexander could wield his myth like a weapon. And so begins the struggle for possession, not just of his soul or memory, but of the bones themselves. His generals see something in the king's body that they can use legitimacy, the right to rule what Alexander had claimed. In their eyes, the body of Alexander is the last crucial conquest. The rest of the world, though, watches from afar with confused fascination. People thousands of miles away hear rumors. In Athens, in Egypt, in the wild lands west of the Nile, Alexander's death is not just a headline but a cosmic event. Civilizations feel his absence quake through them like the aftershock of a mountain collapsing. It opens the most tantalizing mystery of all. Where will they put him? How do you bury a living god? And who gets to decide? Tradition, at least in Macedon, is clear. The body of a king should be returned to the land of his fathers. But this is Alexander. He broke every tradition before, why not now? His generals argue. The priests try to claim him. The cities that feared his armies now compete to be the place of his rest. For the first time in history, the very question of where a dead man lies threatens to plunge the world back into chaos. Meanwhile, the body rests in Babylon, or so they claim. Some said it was preserved in honey. Some whispered stranger things, that he was neither dead nor truly alive, but trapped somewhere between too great to die and too hated to rule. Legends flare up within hours. The more time passes without resolution, the faster the myth mutates. But there, in the dim candlelit rooms of Babylon, as the heat presses down, a handful of men scheme, not just about the fate of the empire, but about the fate of the body itself. Because if Alexander's corpse is sacred, controlling it means controlling the future. And they know something the rest of the world does not yet realize. Sometimes the power to hide is even greater than the power to conquer. They begin to plot. Word spreads of plans to secretly move the body, to protect it from those who might use it for their own ends. There are rumors of bribes, secret rituals, midnight deals. Some want Alexander's body to rest in Macedon, others want it for Egypt. Others still would bury the secret forever, so that no one, not rival nor priest nor emperor, could wield the dead king's name like a trump card. The air fills with double-crossing whispers and hidden hands. But if history is shaped by stories, it's in these silent, frantic days after Alexander's last breath that the ultimate narrative takes root, the idea that the absence of a king's body can be more powerful than the presence of a living king. As the body is shrouded, sealed, and according to some spirited away in secrecy, the world starts to realize that a lost tomb can haunt 1,000 generations. And so, as dawn breaks over Babylon and the empire splinters, the road to the greatest mystery of all time is paved not in gold or marble, but in deception, secrecy, and obsession. What exactly happened next to Alexander's body? Who seized it? Who wanted it hidden? And who wanted it paraded before the world as a trophy? This moment, the last breath of a legend, marks the beginning of a chase more epic than any of Alexander's battles. Because in trying to control the legacy of the greatest conqueror, the men surrounding his death set into motion the greatest secret in history, the long, twisted, and sometimes deadly path to the tomb that would never be found, or just maybe never be meant to be found. The birth of a myth, the opening of a void, the start of a secret whose shadow darkens everything that comes after. And that is how the legend of Alexander's lost tomb is born, not simply out of death, but out of deliberate, calculated mystery. But the story is only beginning. Picture the moment right after Alexander's final breath, as raw shock settles over Babylon and the fires of confusion burn high. These first days are chaos, generals plotting, priests muttering, and soldiers shifting uncomfortably in the boiling summer heat. But even as men debate what to do with the body, stories begin to swirl, stories destined to become legend. In this instant, myth and reality tear apart, beginning a dance that will outlive empires. Nobody could have anticipated just how quickly Alexander would slip from flesh into myth. The world outside Babylon is hungry for news, and every account brings something new, something impossible. Think about it. Within hours of his death, some claim the king's body shows no sign of decay, a miracle, a curse, perhaps proof that he's a god. Others whisper that the stars above Babylon seem fixed in unnatural patterns, or that strange animals prowl the night. People write letters, poems, prayers. Rumor travels faster than any army Alexander ever led. What happens when a king who claimed to be divine actually dies? For centuries, stories had fueled his rise, and now they fuel something greater. Companions argue over the burial. Some say the land of Macedon must receive its son. Others argue for Egypt, the land Alexander claimed as his new kingdom, the city he had named after himself. So begins a struggle that will churn on for generations, with the body at its center and myth lighting every corner. But secrecy, disagreement, and ambition open the door for something even stranger, a fusion of political power plays and otherworldly storytelling. Was Alexander's corpse really preserved in honey? Did the air shimmer with omens when the great hero fell? No one can agree, and every answer births more doubt, more legend, more possibility. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's closest generals, quickly begins rewriting facts to suit his own purpose. He promotes the idea that Alexander was not just a king, but a semi-divine channel between mortal men and the gods. He has every incentive to exaggerate his friend's legend, to rule Egypt as Alexander's heir. Ptolemy needs divine credibility. The more superhuman Alexander becomes, the more the men fighting for his legacy can claim to be his chosen protectors. Every step of this contest, the stories twist sharper. Alexander's body, when it's finally moved away from Babylon, isn't just a national treasure, it's an object of worship. Priests and opportunists invent rituals around his memory. They spread tales that the king's spirit appears in their dreams, offering veiled guidance or discernible prophecies. The tomb, wherever it might end up, is transformed before it's even found into a mystical locus, a beacon for those seeking both salvation and power. Word reaches Athens and Asia, stirring awe and envy in equal measure. Even rivals, those who once trembled at the thunder of Alexander's approach, now see the power in associating themselves with his corpse. Statues multiply, coins are minted, echoing his face. Poets sing about his journey to the underworld. Slowly the line between reality and myth erodes away. For millions across 3 continents, Alexander's death is less an ending than an omen. Why does myth breed so much faster than history? Part of the answer is raw need. Alexander conquered lands no one had seen, strode into deserts and jungles others feared, and claimed to unite East and West. Now, with his body missing, or at least in peril, every group wants to bend his story to their purposes. For the Greeks, he remains the king of kings, a son of Zeus. For the Egyptians, he is a pharaoh, maybe even Osiris reborn. For others, he's a terrifying ghost, a caution whispered to restless children. Wherever his final resting place lies, it becomes a mirror for ambition. Along the great Green Nile, the priests of Egypt see opportunity too. A king who can satisfy both the gods and foreign conquerors is the perfect tool for influence. Rituals are reinvigorated. The new city of Alexandria, already humming with talk of commerce and conquest, is painted as a place chosen by fate, a place where Alexander must be entombed to guard the world. In letters and speeches, the city becomes synonymous with Alexander's legacy, and slowly the tomb of Alexander is recast not as a spot on a map, but as a mysterious force, an axis where destiny might shift. As months slide into years, rumors outpace fact by leagues. One day the tomb is seen in Babylon. Days later, it's being built anew in Memphis or Alexandria. Tales of elaborate ceremonies and rivers of gold begin to flourish. Some say that as the body moved toward Egypt, lanterns floated above the funeral cart unbidden, or that the ground trembled beneath its wheels. Others dare to whisper that the body vanishes altogether, spirited away by men with motives darker than ambition. But wherever Alexander's shell lies, the myth is now unstoppable. Across libraries and marketplaces, his name is invoked as magical. In faraway lands, mothers claim children who achieve unlikely greatness are descended from the Lion of Macedon. The legend is no longer local, it is global, viral in the truest sense, consuming fact, reshaping memory, becoming the answer to questions people are too afraid to ask themselves. Every day, Ptolemy and his ilk feed new details into the growing mythos. They do this not out of pure reverence, but calculation. A story told often enough becomes fact, and facts become power. With each retelling, control of Alexander's memory becomes a weapon, a ticket to immortality, not just for the fallen king, but for the architects of his legend. The tomb, whether visible or hidden, slowly slips into abstraction. If you believe one scribe, the location is an open secret. If you believe another, it has already been concealed by shadowy hands. Alexander, just as he slipped beyond the known world in life, is now impossible to fix in death. His monument is not just stone and dust, but an ever-changing echo, ringing with what every age needs to hear. Thus is born the greatest of all forgotten temples, the tomb that isn't a tomb, but an idea bigger than any grave or marble pillar. An object of worship, an engine of conspiracy, a puzzle to obsess ages of kings, emperors, and dreamers. At its heart, this myth, so quick to ignite, so slow to fade, reveals something universal, that history's greatest figures are never allowed to rest. Their stories become battlegrounds, where the living fight for control, not of the past, but of the power stories themselves wield. And as the centuries churn forward, with new powers and new believers rising, the notion of Alexander's tomb grows ever larger, ever stranger, and ever more essential to the story of world history. But what could possess a city, an empire, or a civilization to build itself around the idea of protecting or hiding a single body? And why would so many come to see that tomb, not as a place for mourning, but as a tool of destiny itself? As the myth explodes in scale, the city of Alexandria rises on Egypt's gleaming shore, not just as a monument to Alexander, but as a fortress to keep his secrets safe. Close your eyes for a moment and picture an empty strip of desert along the Egyptian coast. The air is thick with possibilities, and the horizon is young, a blank canvas waiting for history's boldest imagination. Now see the outline of a city, carved not by generations but by the will of one man, Alexander. For most, conquering the world would be enough. For him, it was just the beginning. As news of his death ripples through the ancient world, this city, Alexandria, takes on a destiny beyond trade, learning, or rule. It becomes the city designed to guard the greatest secret of all. From the outset, Alexandria isn't just a city, it is a statement. Its streets are laid out geometrically, intentionally echoing the wisdom of the gods, as architects would claim. In the city's heart, spaces are cleared not for markets, but for monuments, grand, looming structures for a new kind of worship. This is not the organic chaos of Babylon or the sacred hills of Macedon. Here everything is built with purpose, precision, authority. Alexander wanted a city that controlled not just the land, but the very memory of his being. Yet whispers spread swiftly. Is Alexandria a haven for knowledge, or a fortress for a secret? The library rises, promising to collect all the words of the world. But at the same time, cryptic stories leap from mouth to mouth. This city, they murmur, is meant to shelter something more tangible, more fragile than scrolls, something that could tip the scales of power in a heartbeat. The rumors only grow as Ptolemy claims rule, declaring the city as both Alexander's legacy and his shrine. Publicly, Ptolemy celebrates Alexander with festivals that attract thousands. Priests in white robes hold ceremonies at dawn, promising that the city's founder still guides the fate of men. But there are other rituals not for the crowds: shadowed figures handling sealed crates, soldiers ordered to silence, stone chambers built beneath palaces. The construction of Alexandria's central district is rumored to coincide with the arrival of a singular precious cargo, one that no outsider is ever allowed to see. The body of Alexander, some say, lies at the center, encased in gold, encircled by guards, far below the marble steps. Why all this trouble? Because power is now as much about perception as armies. As visitors arrive from Athens, Carthage, and even distant Rome, they're told stories about the tomb. Some are led to an ornate shrine, layered with gold panels. Here rests the son of Zeus, the guides declare. Others hear there is a deeper crypt, hidden below ground, where only the most loyal may enter. Both stories can't be true, or maybe neither one is. What's certain is that Alexandria's mystique, its energy, its sense of destiny, begins to revolve completely around secrets. Over time, as the city grows into the commercial and intellectual center of the Mediterranean, a cult of invisibility takes root. The more uncertain outsiders become about the location of the tomb, the more powerful the story grows. The people of Alexandria, scholars, traders, street prophets, adopt this secrecy as their own. Some say the tomb is a test, only the pure can find it. Others believe it's cursed, and that interference will draw down the wrath of vengeful gods. Parents hush their children with tales of ghostly kings wandering the catacombs, and visiting rulers perform midnight offerings, just in case the legends are true. Meanwhile, Ptolemy and his successors use the legend as a resource, an insurance policy. If their right to rule is ever challenged, they need only lift the veil and reveal Alexander as their sacred charge. When rebels threaten, rumors surface that the tomb has been moved. When peace reigns, descriptions of dazzling funeral rites flow again through the city's crowded squares. This cycle of revelation and concealment feeds the obsession, making Alexandria a city less defined by stone than by whispers and riddles. Generation after generation, the city's fortunes rise and fall. Libraries burn, empires clash, streets are rebuilt, renamed, forgotten. But the puzzle of the tomb remains. Some say they have glimpsed a marble sarcophagus, others a golden statue said to weep blood. Archaeologists in the centuries to come will describe layers upon layers of burial chambers, some lavish, some left eerily empty. None will find conclusive proof. The absence itself becomes the city's greatest artifact. What does it mean for a city to be built around a secret? In Alexandria's case, the secret is not just a corpse, but an idea, a power that cannot be destroyed because it can never be captured. Anyone can build towers, libraries, ports. Only Alexandria promises something greater, a mystery beyond reach, but always close enough to shape belief. So even as centuries roll forward, and the city's glory fades, the myth that it was forged to hide the unfindable tomb stays alive, outlasting fires, floods, even the tides themselves. It seeps into every story thereafter about hidden power and forbidden knowledge. Deep down, the people of Alexandria, and indeed of the world, are left with a question: can you ever truly possess a legend, or is the act of seeking all that we are allowed? The city stands, coast-washed with orange dusk and sea salt, a monument not to what is found, but to what is forever sought. And at its core, somewhere in stone, sand, or silence, the secret waits, reshaping every era that dares to come close. Imagine Alexandria in its infancy, a city humming with promise and vigilance. Under the relentless Egyptian sun, marble columns rise, plazas fill with voices in 100 languages, and at its heart, one man quietly engineers history itself: Ptolemy. He is not merely Alexander's general, nor just another contender clawing at the scraps of an empire. No, Ptolemy understands something the others do not. To rule Egypt, he must first rule the myth of Alexander, and that means becoming the first, the most cunning of the tomb's guardians. Ptolemy's gamble starts with a single, audacious move. He intercepts Alexander's burial procession as it snakes from Babylon toward Macedonia, capturing the body intended for the ancestral kings. Why? Because whoever holds Alexander's remains holds the soul of the empire. In the silent chill before dawn, his soldiers seize the relic, spiriting it away into the desert and south toward the Nile. For Egypt, this is no ordinary deed. The arrival of Alexander's corpse is treated with rituals not seen since the age of the pharaohs. Temples ignite with processions. Priests proclaim the dead king a god, not just a conqueror, but an immortal, a bridge between this world and the afterlife. The event blends Macedonian hero worship with Egyptian theology, fusing identities into a new cult, Alexander reborn as an anchor for both traditions, and Ptolemy as his high priest. What Ptolemy creates is not merely a tomb but a shrine, wrapped in secrecy and ceremony. The golden sarcophagus is said to gleam with impossible luster, attended by the highest order of Egyptian priests and guarded by silent soldiers day and night. All the while rumors filter through the city. Some say the tomb is open to the chosen, others that its depths hold riddles only the worthy can decipher. Every ritual, every story further distances the reality from the legend, giving Ptolemy's New Egypt an aura of sanctity and terror. Across Mediterranean courts, this act triggers awe and fury in equal measure. Other generals, deprived of their prize, see their own legitimacy fade. From Pergamon to Athens, word spreads that Ptolemy alone can invoke Alexander's blessing or his wrath. His grip tightens. Foreign emissaries, diplomats, even poets rush to Alexandria, offering tribute to the dead king and to the man who now speaks in his name. But what fuels Ptolemy's creation, this cult of Alexander, is not just adoration, but calculation. At every ceremony, he stands closest to the tomb, wrapping his own claim to Egypt in the shine of his predecessor. He has coins minted on one side his own face, on the other, Alexander's radiant profile. Statues bloom across the land, twin visages of king and guardian etched into stone and bronze. The tomb itself evolves. It becomes not just a destination for pilgrims, but a stage for power plays. When Ptolemy's rule is challenged, he parades the sarcophagus through Alexandria, a dazzling reminder of who owns the past, and by extension, who owns the future. If dissent grows, word is spread of visions and omens that Alexander's spirit favors Ptolemy, that the gods themselves approve the transfer of power. Secret rites multiply in the city's hidden chambers, blending Macedonian memories with Egyptian mysticism. Some say the tomb holds not just bone but oracles, that the dead king communicates guidance about wars and alliances. Ptolemy's court becomes a theater of spiritual drama, with each performance blurring the line between history and wishful fantasy. For ordinary people, the cult of Alexander is both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Children are brought to the tomb and taught that kings can become gods if only they shape their story tightly enough. Priests build entire volumes of ritual for the site. Poets devise new epics chronicling Alexander's rebirth as a protector of Egypt. The city's festivals grow wilder. Everything is infused with the presence of the dead king, a presence manufactured by the careful hand of his guardian. Yet beneath the public spectacle, a darker truth festers. Ptolemy's rivals whisper of desecration. Macedonian traditionalists insist Alexander belongs to his homeland. Others claim the body is not even genuine, that Ptolemy staged the entire affair. No one can prove or disprove these rumors, and so the conspiracy itself becomes a shield for Alexandria's power, a defense based on doubt. Over time, Ptolemy's family inherits the role of guardian, transforming the tomb into a dynastic symbol. As each ruler dies, stories swirl about secret passages, enchanted relics, curses, and disappearances. Alexandria's notoriety only grows. Foreign kings send spies to find the tomb. Pilgrims leave treasures or desperate prayers on its threshold. Some vanish, swallowed by the labyrinth of cult and secrecy. Decades pass, but Ptolemy's spell holds. Whoever seeks to rule Egypt must first kneel at the altar of Alexander, must play the part of guardian, and in turn risk the shadow that always accompanies myth. The tomb is watched, worshipped, and like all the world's greatest mysteries, never quite revealed in full daylight. Everything about Alexandria's power now hinges on this paradox. The more the tomb is concealed, the more it controls those who seek it. The cult persists, morphing as the city grows, as new tyrants rise and fall. At its silent core, Ptolemy's act of seizing Alexander's body continues to shape destinies far beyond his own life. His guardianship is no mere custodianship. It is a template for every ruler who would hide power behind ritual, and every secret keeper who knows that the best way to rule is to withhold the truth. And so, as centuries spin forward, the tomb's legend outlives even memory. Only the guardians remain, standing sentinel in a city built for shadow and awe. The fall of one ancient empire is the rise of another. Imagine a world in flux, the mighty Macedonian Empire fraying at its edges, as the relentless march of Rome shadows every step. As power shifts westward, so does the obsession with the legacy of Alexander, particularly the secret of his tomb. The Romans, masters of conquest and symbolism, understand something crucial. Controlling Alexander's body is not merely about the past, it defines who controls the present and who writes history. With the collapse of Ptolemaic rule in Egypt, the tomb's guardianship falls under new hands. But Rome isn't interested in quiet custodianship. To them, Alexander's remains are a trophy, a symbol of ultimate authority to be plundered and displayed. Roman generals and emperors, keenly aware of Alexander's almost mythic stature, seek to claim his tomb or at least some fragment of his immortality to reinforce their own power. Stories swirl of elaborate heists under cover of darkness, of statues torn from temples, sarcophagi pried open, and relics spirited away to Rome's heart. It is said that Julius Caesar, or perhaps Augustus, tried to make a public show of possessing Alexander's remains, to co-opt the king's grandeur for the nascent Roman Empire. Coins, inscriptions, and statues echo this ambition, portraits of emperors carved with Alexander's unmistakable profile overlaying their own, as if to declare that the conqueror's spirit now resided in Rome. But beneath this bold display lies an even more profound tension: Rome's hunger to control not just a physical body, but the legend itself, the stories, the rituals, the belief that power is transferable through the dead king's presence. In public forums and Senate chambers, senators debate the meaning of legacy and divine right. Alexander's tomb becomes a symbol of legitimacy for those who claim the mantle of empire. Yet the hunt is not a simple robbery. The more Rome advances its claim, the more the mystery deepens. Accounts from Roman chroniclers are contradictory. Some speak of locating the tomb with grandeur, others of fruitless searches and vanished treasures. The tomb allegedly discovered near Alexandria is described as magnificent, only to vanish again under unclear circumstances. This ambiguity feeds speculation. Did Rome truly possess Alexander's body, or was it another secret lost amid the empire's expansion? Perhaps Rome found a tomb, but one prepared to deceive, a carefully constructed shrine meant to mislead and protect the real resting place. The Romans, after all, knew the power of a symbol as well as anyone. It's in this twilight that stories of theft, misdirection, and intentional concealment multiply. Ambassadors whisper of otherworldly guards, curses said to fall on those who disturb the king's repose. Soldiers speak in hushed tones of tombs emptied overnight and treasures spirited away by unknown hands. The legend grows wilder than ever, spilling into theater and poetry, where Alexander is cast as an eternal rival to Rome's mightiest leaders. Rome's obsession also speaks to a deeper universal truth: the desire to possess history as proof of one's greatness. To see Alexander's remains was to hold a piece of eternity. To control his tomb was to claim the very soul of conquest. For centuries, this pursuit dazzled emperors and generals alike, coloring politics and war with ethereal stakes. But as Rome's empire ages, so too does the certainty of the tomb's whereabouts fade. What remains is a fog of fragments, snippets of text, fleeting mentions by historians, bits of statues, coins, and grand claims denied by silence. And behind all this is a persistent nagging question: is the tomb lost because it was destroyed, or because it was hidden on purpose? After all, Alexander's tomb was never just a grave. It was a symbol, a prize, a matter of cosmic significance. Whoever controlled it could rewrite history, shaping how centuries would remember not just Alexander, but power itself. As the dust settles on Rome's long shadow, the mystery remains. The king's legacy is stolen, yet also fiercely protected, by stories, by silence, by the invisible hands that understand better than any army the cost of losing control of a legend. Without the tomb, empires rise and fall. But the legend of Alexander the Conqueror who transcended mortality lives on, haunting every marble statue, every whispered piece of history. Rome may have taken many things, but the secret of Alexander's final resting place remains the greatest treasure never truly claimed. History is often written by those who conquer, but some of its most haunting pages are written by what disappears. Things lost, erased, or deliberately hidden. After Rome's imperial reach wanes and the Mediterranean world fractures into new powers, Alexander's tomb, once thought an open secret, begins to slip from sight. The shadows deepen, and the story grows darker, a labyrinth of vanishings that has baffled scholars, treasure seekers, and rulers alike for centuries. Picture the scene: vast deserts, shifting sands, ruins swallowed by time, memories buried beneath layers of dust. The tomb, once a beacon, fades into myth and rumor. Reports emerge of explorers, monks, and soldiers who ventured close, only to return with empty hands, or stories too strange to believe. Whispers tell of tombs found emptied, of entire chambers sealed off but mysteriously erased from maps and records. The closer you come, the less you seem to find. These disappearances are no accident. As different regimes rise, empire after empire, dynasty after dynasty, There is growing concern that Alexander's tomb is not to be found but to be hidden. Political urgency drives covert actions. Some rulers order secret excavations, only to seal them off again. Certain priesthoods guard arcane knowledge of lost passages and cryptic markers. Powerful families pass down coded maps locked away in vaults. The tomb's absence becomes a tool, weaponized to hold the restless in check. Imagine Byzantine envoys poring over ancient texts seeking clues, only to find entire pages missing or redacted. Think of Sassanid spies recounting tales of subterranean labyrinths beneath desert fortresses. Tales cascade of curses, a tangled web warning that those who pry will be swallowed by the very sands they disturb. Through the Middle Ages, the tomb's mystery grows into a vast shadow war, fought in quiet, unseen arenas. Even as the world changes, the rise of Islam, crusades, Mongol invasions, the tomb's legend refuses to die. Each new power claims lineage or guardianship over Alexander's spirit. Archaeologists centuries later speculate that medieval builders reconstructed parts of cities and tombs to disguise the original resting place. Some propose that earthquakes and floods buried crucial sites forever, while others theorize deliberate destruction, all to control the king's legacy by absence. The tomb's disappearance sparks a new kind of obsession. Unlike the public display of power in Rome or Alexandria, this is a secret war waged through silence. The very gaps in history become fertile ground for conspiracies, fertile enough to spawn thousands of theories. Treasure hunters chase mirages across dunes, historians debate fading inscriptions, and dreamers spin tales that the tomb may lie beneath impossible locations, from the jungles of India to secret caves in the Caucasus. And for all the effort, for all the searching, one fact remains: the greatest mystery of Alexander's death is not just the body, but the deliberate erasure of its trail, a vanishing act of power that has echoed through the centuries. The tomb, once the ultimate prize, becomes the most profound absence in all the tapestry of history. Why were these disappearances allowed? Who gained from the tomb fading into myth rather than being found? This question ignites passions not just from historians, but from every culture that looks back at Alexander's vast empire, a question that pulls us into a deeper exploration of what it means to control history itself. As the sands swallow treasures and truth alike, Alexander's tomb morphs from a physical place to an idea, a symbol too dangerous for any man to hold. It haunts empires without anchors and legends without graves. This chapter's shadows provide the perfect stage for the next phase of the story, a medieval world obsessed with both uncovering and protecting Alexander's legacy. But before we journey there, let the echoes of these vanishings settle. What is lost in history's sands, and what price do those who seek truth pay when the truth keeps disappearing? As the centuries turn, empires fall, and new religions rise, the mystery of Alexander's tomb echoes through a very different world, the medieval age, a period where faith and power clash, and the past is rewritten with both reverence and fear. This is the time when Alexander the Great transforms from merely a conqueror of lands into a figure woven into the fabric of myths, legends, and spiritual quests that captivate an entire era. By the 7th century, Alexandria, once the dazzling jewel of Alexander's empire, faces earthquakes, riots, and destructions that threaten everything it once held sacred, including the tomb. Christian emperors and church leaders, intent on stamping out pagan worship, declare the cult around Alexander a threat, forcing many secrets underground or into disguise. The tomb itself, once a place of pilgrimage for rulers like Julius Caesar and Augustus, falls into obscurity. The tomb's location becomes increasingly shrouded in symbolic darkness as physical evidence disappears or is deliberately concealed. But even as the city and its monuments crumble, the legend does not fade. It adapts. Medieval storytellers weave Alexander into epic tales, casting him as both an earthly king and a mystic voyager who traveled to lands beyond the known world. Alexander's exploits become allegories for spiritual journeys, battles against darkness, and quests for divine wisdom. Christian legends merge with lingering pagan beliefs, creating stories that portray Alexander as a precursor to or rival of saints and biblical heroes. Some texts describe magical gates he supposedly built to hold back barbarian hordes, while others tell of his search for the Fountain of Youth or the Philosopher's Stone. These symbolic deeds cloak Alexander's physical tomb with new layers of mystery, shifting the quest from mere archaeology to one of spiritual discovery. Meanwhile, a covert war wages beneath the surface. Various religious and political factions compete to either reveal or conceal Alexander's legacy. Some medieval rulers see the tomb as a source of divine legitimacy, while church authorities fear its power to inspire pagan idolatry. Rumors spread of secret societies, hermit monks guarding ancient knowledge, and cryptic manuscripts hinting at hidden chambers beneath ruined cities. In the far reaches of the Byzantine Empire, and into the Islamic world, Alexander's legend is retold with local flavor, sometimes as a philosopher king, sometimes as a great conqueror whose tomb is a sacred relic. Muslim scholars translate Greek and Persian texts, preserving fragments of history that might otherwise have been lost, all the while fueling speculation about where the tomb might be concealed. Yet amid these cultural currents, tangible evidence continues to elude seekers. Pilgrims who claim to have glimpsed the tomb report visions, omens, or curses. Others return empty-handed, their stories dismissed as myth or madness. The more the tomb remains hidden, the more it becomes a canvas for every hope, fear, and ambition medieval minds could summon. The echoes of Alexander's tomb thus resonate across centuries, sometimes barely audible beneath the roar of history, other times arrested in the songs and scriptures of kings and commoners alike. It becomes a symbol of lost knowledge, unending pursuit, and the uneasy tension between memory and oblivion. As the medieval world fades and the Renaissance dawns, the search for Alexander's tomb intensifies anew, fueling treasure hunts, scholarly debates, and wild conjectures that push the mystery ever deeper into human imagination. But before the Renaissance brings fresh eyes, this chapter of religious reverence, mythic transformation, and shadowy guardianship sets the stage for an obsession that spans continents and eras. It is an obsession that refuses to let the greatest conqueror rest, not in peace nor in stone. By the dawn of the modern era, the mystery of Alexander's tomb has become a magnet for dreamers, adventurers, and scholars alike, a rattling ghost that beckons across continents and centuries. This chapter is the story of an obsession reborn in the age of empires and exploration, a feverish race driven as much by greed and ego as by a genuine desire to solve one of history's greatest puzzles. Picture the 19th century. Egyptology is booming, new archaeological methods are emerging, and the dusty ruins of Alexandria and surrounding sites are suddenly alive with activity. Treasure hunters, both official and rogue, flood the region with picks, shovels, and maps drawn from half-read ancient manuscripts. From British aristocrats to local guides, everyone has a stake in the chase. But the search is far from straightforward. Alexandria's layers of destruction and rebuilding have obscured the city's ancient heart. Earthquakes, floods, wars, and centuries of city planning have buried or destroyed much of the physical evidence. Speculation grows wildly divergent. Could the tomb be under a mosque, a villa, or even beneath the Mediterranean Sea? Every clue finds conflicting interpretations. Every rumor breeds dozens of theories. Legendary explorers like Giovanni Belzoni and Howard Carter, famous for their discoveries elsewhere in Egypt, expressed frustrations at the tomb's elusiveness. Prominent Egyptologists argued heatedly in scholarly circles, debating the authenticity of sites and questioning each other's claims. Booming nationalism added another layer. Could the tomb of the world's greatest conqueror belong not to Egypt, Macedonia, or Rome, but to the modern nation that first uncovers it? Meanwhile, shadowy tales proliferate of forgeries and frauds, fake treasures sold to unsuspecting collectors, ancient texts forged to mislead rivals, and secret societies working behind the scenes to protect the tomb's location. The legend becomes a stage for a global contest, where truth, myth, and ambition collide violently. Yet a few archaeological discoveries crack open the story. Sites like the so-called Alabaster Tomb in Alexandria's ancient quarters offer tantalizing hints, though nothing conclusively tied to Alexander. Scholars uncover mausoleums, crypts, and elaborate burial chambers with architectural echoes to Macedonia, but gaps in silence remain stubborn. DNA analysis prospects emerge only recently, promising breakthroughs if the body ever surfaces. This modern chapter of the search reveals more about those who pursue the tomb than the tomb itself. It's a story of obsession meeting science, belief colliding with skepticism, and ancient secrets lighting new flames of desire. In many ways, the quest for Alexander's tomb mirrors the man himself, bold, wandering through darkness, driven by a hunger for immortality. The race continues, with the tomb a prize no one owns but everyone claims to seek. And as each new generation digs, dreams, and debates, the shadow of Alexander's grave looms larger, demanding answers from beneath the sand and from within ourselves. With the passing of time, the quest for Alexander's tomb shifts from open pursuit to a more insidious battle, a struggle not only to find but to erase, forget, and control memory itself. This chapter explores how the disappearance of Alexander's tomb became a deliberate act of political and religious power, a campaign of forgetting rolled out across empires desperate to rewrite history on their own terms. After the Roman era, Alexandria and other key sites gradually faded into obscurity. The rise of Christianity brought dramatic cultural shifts. Pagan temples, cults, and relics, especially those associated with figures like Alexander, whose worship had bordered on the divine, were seen as threats. Church authorities, determined to establish new orthodoxy, often destroyed or repurposed monuments, silenced pagan rituals, and erased records. The tomb, once a place of pilgrimage, became a target for symbolic erasure. Powerful rulers realized that allowing the tomb to remain visible and accessible posed risks. Alexander's legacy was a double-edged sword, a symbol of unity and conquest, but also a reminder of a world before new gods and new powers. Suppressing or hiding the tomb became a tool to control not only the past but also the future, steering people's allegiance away from old empires and myths toward emerging faiths and political orders. Historical records indicate moments of deliberate forgetting. For instance, in the late Roman era, accounts describe how Alexander's tomb was sealed or closed during visits by emperors like Septimius Severus and Caracalla, possibly to keep it from becoming a rallying symbol for rebellion. Later, during periods of political turmoil, fires and riots damaged key sites, sometimes suspiciously sparing other structures, hinting at targeted destruction. Medieval European and Middle Eastern historians often mention the tomb only in cryptic or conflicting terms, reflecting a wider reluctance to acknowledge its existence openly. Some chroniclers suggest the tomb was hidden beneath Christian churches or converted into entirely new religious spaces, cloaking the ancient legacy under layers of sacred reinvention. Others propose the remains were secretly moved or stolen to protect them from desecration or political exploitation. This politics of forgetting continued well into the modern era. Local authorities, colonial powers, and even early archaeologists sometimes suppressed or ignored evidence that might disrupt established narratives or complicate geopolitical interests. The tomb's very absence became a political asset, a blank space where competing histories collided and overlapped. For centuries, the deliberate concealment shaped not just what we know about Alexander, but also our collective understanding of history, empire, and power. The tomb's erasure reveals a deeper truth about human societies, that controlling memory, what is remembered and what is forgotten, is as potent as any conquest. The politics of forgetting invites us to ask, who decides what is worth preserving? What motivated so many to keep Alexander's tomb hidden? And what does this hiddenness say about the fragility of legacy? This shadowy chapter prepares us for the next revelation, the theories that suggest the tomb was hidden deliberately, a secret kept by powerful hands to guard not just a body, but an idea. After millennia of searching, speculation, and secrecy, what remains when the dust settles around Alexander the Great's lost tomb? This final chapter isn't merely about a burial site shrouded in mystery. It is an exploration of what the legend of Alexander's resting place reveals about us as humans, our obsessions with power, legacy, and the stories we tell to make sense of history. Think of all those who have chased the tomb: conquerors, priests, emperors, archaeologists, treasure hunters, dreamers. Each is drawn not just by a desire for riches or fame, but by a yearning to touch immortality, to anchor their own place in an ever-shifting world. Alexander's tomb becomes a mirror, reflecting our fears of death, of forgetting, of meaninglessness, and our hopes for greatness, transcendence, and eternal influence. The tomb's enduring elusiveness forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes it is the absence of answers that shapes our legacy more than their presence. The mysterious disappearance of Alexander's body, the deliberately concealed tomb, the legends layered thick through time, all point to an idea far greater than any physical artifact. They speak to the human need to believe in something larger, to create myths that give order to chaos. In many ways, the search for Alexander's tomb is not about finding a place, but about discovering ourselves. It challenges us to question what we value: power or memory, truth or belief, history or myth. The greatest secret of Alexander's tomb might not be where he lies, but why we refuse to let him rest. As history marches on with new discoveries, scientific advances, and changing viewpoints, the mystery remains a living story. It invites every generation to ask, what legacy will we leave behind? What truths will we cherish or conceal? And above all, who gets to decide which stories endure? Alexander's lost tomb, then, is less a destination and more a journey, a timeless quest into the heart of human ambition, offering lessons that transcend time, geography, and culture. This is the final reward, a deeper understanding that in seeking the tomb, we are seeking the meaning of history itself and perhaps the meaning of our own lives. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey through time, mystery, and legend.